This will be a quick video about a locals tournament result that I recently went to today. It was my first time going to this locals. Um, I went last week, but there was only two other people there because everybody else was at a convention, so we didn't have enough people to do a tournament. But this week I went and there's about six of us, which isn't all what I was told. Not everybody was there, but enough people to do a tournament. I ended up winning the event, running this exact deck 3-0. It wasn't a highly competitive tournament. There was one mostly casual player that I ran into, but it was my first match. The second player was the most competitive person. He was running, he was running pretty much the entirely standard Chaos Turbo deck with a fairly standard side deck. And he had he was someone that actually uses like the Go Format Discord and talks about decks and looks at what the results are of tournaments and GGPs and uh, qualifiers and worlds and stuff and makes deck decisions off of that. So he was a mostly competitive person, and then the third person was a semi-competitive. He was running Panda Burn, but had like a few tech choices that were different than standard Panda Burn that I felt was a bit less efficient and less optimal. First, we'll go over the deck here, and then we'll go over the tournament results. We can see that we're running basically just an Earth Aggro deck, but we're using the Gearfried and Blast of Chain package in this deck instead of running something like Rats or Berserk Gorillas. So to start off, we've cut down Goblin Attack Force from 3 down to 2. Having 2 Goblin Attack Force is really nice for still having a good Rota toolbox, but the one less Goblin Attack Force makes this much less likely that you open up with Goblin Attack Force being your only monster. And if you're going second or something and have to basically slam that Goblin Attack Force into a set monster, or if you're going first and Goblin Attack Force is the only monster you can summon, you have to basically either you know summon this in face of attack position, just leave it out there to get snatch stealed almost or something, or Tsukiyomi into face down defense and killed, which is terrible. Or the better option to just not summon anything at all, which is not good for this deck because you want to be summoning and keeping up board pressure and attacking. So you run into a less likely situation where Goblin Attack Force is your only monster, and if your opponent plays Pot of Greed or any Trinity and they set a monster, and you can't out it with like a knock or um, an Exiled Force or a Mystic Swordsman level 2, and you just got to attack it with the Goblin Attack Force because you can't let them flip over a Magician of Faith and recycle that Trinity and then flip it back down with a Book of Moon or Tsukiyomi. No matter what, it just feels terrible to have to attack in that position because if it is a Moth, they're still going to plus. If it's um, a Sangan, they plus and get any monster that they want. If there's a Tokoichi, they plus and get a free draw. And then this Goblin Attack Force is going straight into defense position, and you just lose all board pressure. So not having to do that has just been great. I haven't had to do it anywhere near as much with only running 2 instead of 3 Goblin Attack Force, and it's still optimal or still viable to Rhoda for the Goblin Attack Force to kill Zombrairas and Chaos Sorcerers, or just attack directly, or for big damage or game ending damage, or to kill GK Spies with it. The third Goblin Attack Force got subbed out for Berserk Gorilla. This is not the most optimal card because it does have some weaknesses. Obviously, it's not super proof, and it dies to mind control if they take it and put it in defense. But it does present a lot more board pressure than Goblin Attack Force being able to stick on the field. At 2,000 attack, it still kills those Kaikus that you need to be killed, or beats over Kinetic Soldier. With this deck, running the Gearfrieds and the DD Assailants and the Goblin Attack Force, 12 of your monsters in this deck, I believe it's 12, are warriors. Basically, all your attacking monsters, except for this one Berserk Gorilla, these 3 Gigantes, and then this one Breaker. Uh, what's important too is that all 3 of or all 5 of these monsters that aren't warriors are able to kill Kinetic Soldier and Cipher Soldier if it's in defense position, having 1,800 defense, and these are going to be 19, and the Berserk is going to be 2,000. This will be 19 if it doesn't use the counter on it. Being able to kill the Kinetic Soldier so that your opponent can't wall with it is really important because you don't want it to basically turn yourself into a situation where Kinetic Soldier is just another GK spy almost. Um, that is important. Killing Haikus, like I said. Um, Going on to the next here is just Gigantes. That's normal. Gearfried is new. We are running 3 of them. I've seen people say that you should only run two with Gearfrieds and like an Earth aggro deck like this. But I found that three has been fine. I never find a situation where I draw a Gearfried and I think it's a dead draw. This is actually my go-to rota target instead of DD Assailant when you just need something to stay on the board and attack monsters with or attack directly with. I'm choosing usually Gearfried most situations. Having this just face up on summon, you always have the threat of Blast with Chain, and we'll get to the importance of Blast with Chain and how good this can be in the deck and how optimal and or not optimal, I guess, but how many uses and versatility and what it does to your opponent really having this in the deck. We'll get to that later, but just having Gearfried face up just creates a lot of problems for your opponent a lot of times. And it's just a solid monster. 1800, it crashes with Kaiku. I mean, it doesn't beat Kaiku, unfortunately, but just being able to crash with Kaiku is so important because it will prevent you from, not getting your Gigantes out. And then even if it crashes, like it still doesn't get the banish effect because it didn't do damage to you. So it's a pretty good situation. 1600 defense, it's soup proof, just like most of this deck, which is amazing. Going on to the DD Assailants, this is pretty standard. The rest of this is all standard. The only thing that's a little unstandard would be probably the Sasuke Samurai, which I've seen this in some Earth Aggro decks and some not. I like it in Earth Aggro just because it's another out for GK Spy. Also, sometimes your opponent will leave Chaos Sorcerers or BLS even in defense mode because they don't want it in attack mode when they summon it because they're afraid of possibly losing it to a Mirror Force. So that can be a cheeky way to get rid of those cards as well, with just, Rotowing for Ninja Grandmaster here. So I think it's fine. You're not like really short on the Earth monsters. I mean, you've only got 3 non-Earths in the main deck right here. So your other 14 monsters are all Earths, and even with the DD Assailants banning themselves a lot of times, you're usually not running into too many situations where your Gigantes clogged unless you just opened really badly and had 2 of these in like your opening hand or something. The spells are all standard. I mean, this is basically um, to the T standard Earth aggro. Some Earth aggros will run 3 Smashing Grounds, but 2 is pretty normal. 3 Dust Tornadoes. Sometimes most of them, I think, most decks run only 2. 3 is just really good because we are running the Blast with Chain, and Dust Tornado works well with other traps because you don't have to overcommit with your traps. So my example with that would be, you don't have to set Dust Tornado and Blast with Chain on turn 1. You can set just Dust Tornado, for example, and then on your opponent's turn when they play, if they MST your Dust Tornado, you can chain the Dust Tornado, and then off the secondary effect, set your Blast with Chain, and then when it's your turn, your Blast with Chain becomes live, or your Call of the Haunted, or your Ring of Destruction. Obviously not Mirror Force because you don't want that to be, you can't use that on your turn, but these trap cards that you can use on your own turn, it can be really good to just have that secondary effect used to set that on your opponent's turn, those trap cards on your opponent's turn, and not have to risk losing them to a heavy storm or just a blind menace T or something like that. Also, this is just really good to get rid of back row that's annoying. If you hit a Mirror Force with one of these, it's amazing, or a Torrential Tribute. You get rid of those cards that have the ability to just kind of wipe your field and go very high plus and just take away all your momentum. If you hit one of those, it can almost be game winning at times. So having 3 of these, I just feel really good about it. I've never really felt like this is a brick draw or a dead card. Most of the time, it's just because of how aggro and attack heavy the deck is. So Blast with Chain, this is kind of the big reason why you run Gearfried. Gearfried's an okay monster on its own, but Blast with Chain in this deck works just so well because you can use it during your damage step. So if you do attack and it ends up being like a GK Spy that you attacked into, during the damage step, you can use this and any one of these attacking monsters with a Blast with Chain on it is going to kill the GK Spy. The only exception would be like DD Warrior Lady that goes to 2000, but you would just end up probably banishing it anyway. Banish the DD Warrior Lady and the GK Spy to get rid of it. But even like a breaker without its counter on it goes up to 21 and can kill a GK Spy. And then you have the ability to kill the second spy because you're going to use this Blast with Chain during the damage step. And when that happens, your opponent isn't able to Sakuretsu Armor or Book of Moon or Phoenix Wing Blast or Regeki Break because it's in the damage step. The only thing they can really do is use their own like I, I guess like stat boosting card, but no one runs those. Like you're talking about like stuff like Rush Recklessly or something, but mostly it's going to be like Solemns. And if you do get a Solemn on a Blast with Chain, like that's such a huge card because that's just a 1-for-1. Most of the time, when you're thinking about Solemns, they're being used on these really important cards like Heavy Storm or Snatch Steel or Trinity or Mirror Force. And if you're getting it to, you're forcing your opponent to use Solemn Judgment on a Blast with Chain, then you're doing well. But if it, it doesn't get Solemned, then no matter what, like you attack with DD Assailant into a GK Spy, this gets boosted over 2,000. You've already killed one GK Spy, and then next turn you have the possible ability to attack and kill the next one if your opponent can't stop it. And even if they do stop that, like one GK Spy is just so much easier to deal with stuff like Smashing Ground or just another Goblin Attack Force or a Sasuke or a DD Warrior Lady. It just makes it so much easier to deal with one. But a lot of times you're able to just kill both of them with your boosted up monster. Um, this also makes it so your opponent can't blindly destroy your back row. They can't, as long as you have a face up monster, I should say. As long as you have a face up monster and back row, it's very difficult for your opponent to just blindly like MST, end phase MS, well, not end phase, but to blindly MST or heavy storm your back row because you can chain the Blast with Chain onto any face up monster. And then when their card destroys it, you can pop one of their cards. So the only time they can really destroy your back row blindly like that is if they don't have anything to lose, if they just have no cards on their field. So I mean, if they heavy and there's no monsters, or they MST and there's literally no monsters or back row, then they can safely blindly kill your back row. But otherwise, if they do try to blindly kill their back row, they'd run into the possibility of it backfiring on them and you chaining this to a face up monster and popping one of their cards. Also, just Blast with Chain with Gearfried is really amazing because, again, you can use it during the damage step. So, if your opponent summons a Zambira and tries to attack your Gearfried, use Blast with Chain during the damage step. You don't get the boost, but you can still use the effect to pop the Zambira and kill that. So just a damage step card that's has so much versatility in that way. It's just quite good. Trap Dust Shoot, that's just a standard in most decks now, especially just like in Earth Aggro and Aggro decks and even like Chaos Turbo and some control decks. These are just all staples, nothing to go over there. I will say that the Torrential Tributes in the side, just because we do want to keep monsters face up on the field to threaten the Blast with Chain, and we want to keep our Gearfrieds and stuff. I don't know if that's correct yet or not. I haven't missed Torrential Tribute, but you are giving up a way to deal with like monsters swarming the field. So not only GK Spy, like it's a good out to GK Spy, but it's also outs to Scapegoats or Ojama Trios and things like that. So I usually bring it in against card or decks that use tokens, but right now it's not in the main deck. Tribe is also in the side deck. Similar thing. I feel like with the Blaster Chain and the Ninja and the Goblin Attack Force and Smashing Ground and even the Exiled and Mystic Swordsman level 2, we have so many ways to deal with GK Spy. I mean, we can even kill a GK Spy while it's set with a Blast with Chain on a Gearfried before it even flips up, and we have to deal with both of them. So there's just so many ways to deal with GK Spy, and that's mostly what this card has been for, is dealing with that. That I kind of put it in the side deck, but again, like when I go up against stuff that uses tokens, this will come back into the main deck. I'm not entirely sure if that's correct yet or not, but it's worked out well so far. So I'll have to do more testing with it still. The side deck is pretty standard. I mean, Mobius is for burn, King Tigers, Archer. Compulses are for goat control specifically, just to out Thousand Eyes, and then it's a good counter to creature swaps. The third Blast with Change, this comes in during matchups against other aggro decks, so mirror matches into Earth or against Warriors, because like I said, this basically acts, Blast with Chain can basically act as a Sakuretsu armor in a lot of ways, but like better. If you have a monster and they attack a Blade Knight into your Gearfried, or maybe not Gearfried, but like, a Gigantes. Like they're boosted Blade Knight into your Gigantes. You go to damage step, boost this up. The only thing they can do is solemn it to kill it and or to stop it. So and then you get to keep your boosted up monster. So even with like the DD assailants or just like a breaker with no token or a ninja, you know. So the third one will come in a lot of times during the matchup against other aggro decks. Third trap dust shoot, that's mostly just for Chaos Turbo. The tribute or the TT already went over. So going over the matches, my first match was against a more casual player. He was using Chaos Control. Game one, I pretty much just took the lead early and just did aggro things. I simplified the game state, used beaters, held control throughout the game until my opponent just didn't have the cards to beat me and couldn't out my beaters. Game two, my opponent was able to get a lot of pluses off of Magician of Faith and Recycling Trinity. So he took a Magician of Faith off of a Sandcan search, and I didn't have anything to out the Magician of Faith. You know, no Nox, no Rhodas for Mystic Swordsman or Exiled Force, so I just had to attack into it and kill it. Because, like I said before, you can't let your opponent flip it up and then flip it back down and plus off of it multiple times on Trinity. So I killed it. He took back Graceful, played the Graceful next turn, got Pot off of the Graceful. Off of the Pot, he got, you know, at somewhere in that point, he got another Magician of Faith and set that. And next turn, he got Pot again. So he got, you know, two Gracefuls, two Pot agrees. Like, I just fell so far behind because of that, not being able to stop that Trinity loop that eventually he just kind of won a grindy out game until I basically just didn't have cards to play and stop him. And then game three was basically the same as game one. I took the lead early, simplified the game state. My beaters just did beater things. I just did aggro things and won that game. I think I won it off a stat steal at the very end. He had like a Kaiku that he used to kill one of my DDAs, and I didn't banish the Kaiku with the DDA effect, so I could just snatch steal it next turn and attack directly for game because he had like one card in hand. I had two cards in hand or one, just like the snatch steal, and so I didn't use the effect, and next turn just won off of it. Match two, that was against the Chaos Turbo player, so he was by far the most competitive person out of everyone I dueled. I dueled him the week before, and I went 1-1 against him in matches. So the first game, he got into a lead, was able to pretty much kind of stall out the game, but he made some critical mistakes that ended up costing him the game. So on turn one, he set two cards. It was a Solomon, I think a Mirror Force or a Torrential. It was one of the like the big blow up cards that he wanted to keep. And so my turn one, I just heavy stormed right away, and he had, well, I should say that his turn one, he also delinquent duoed, so he brought himself down to 7,000, and that gave him a good like lead too, because you know getting duoed turn one never feels great. So I heavy stormed his back row, and then he ended up Soloming the heavy storm to keep the Mirror Force or Torrential, one of the two. And so he went down to 3,500. Um, Later on, he had a spy that he flipped up that I didn't out, and then he turned that spy into attack. One of those spies into attack mode. I think I killed one of them, and the other one he turned into attack mode to attack me directly. And then I was able to summon a monster and then kill that spy, and that dropped him down to like 2,800. And I also had Ring of Destruction that I had set on the field and made live. And then next turn, he summons out his BLS in defense mode and starts banishing my monster, my beater, because he didn't have any other way to stop it. And so at that point, now he's basically got game on board because I have the ring to kill the BLS and do 3,000, and he's below 3,000. But I figured that he might have like a Solemn or a Book of Moon or something to stop that. So next turn, I didn't use it right away. I decided to try to see if I could get lucky and snipe the Solemn or the Book of Moon with my breaker the next turn. Played that. I didn't hit anything. I think I hit. I don't even know where to hit. I can't remember. I think it was like a Nobleman cross out, which is a bluff set because he had 3 set face down, and I was really at the point where like there was just nothing I could do. I didn't have any other outs for the BLS, and I pretty much had to just kind of go for ring and see if he had anything to stop it. And if he didn't, I win. If he does, then he probably wins. So I went for it, and he didn't have anything to stop it, and that was just the game right there. Pretty much a big mistake on his part, I would say, because he really didn't need that BLS to win. He was in a pretty commanding lead just from the delinquent duo turn one that I just had really struggled to recover from, and then he was able to plus off of the spy, the GK spy that he used. So I was able to get like a steal win game one. Game two, he brought in the control package, which I've seen before. Last week when I played him, though, he didn't have like scapegoats and metas and creature swaps in his side deck. He didn't have those at all, and so I didn't expect it. And then that game two, he plays. I go to attack directly, and here comes scapegoats. So that took me by surprise, and he was able to really effectively use the scapegoats to stall out the game and get his trinities and recycle them, and do chaos turbo things, get card advantage, and eventually won a grindy game that stalled out. I was in a pretty good position right up until those scapegoats got played, I would say. So then game three, I drastically changed the deck, obviously. Um, brought in the King Tigers, and I think I had put in like a third trap dust shoot and a mind control over like the smashings, and I took those back out and put in like the torrential for the scapegoats. Game three though, I was just able to pretty much do like what chaos or aggro decks do. Got a lead early, kept up the pressure. I didn't want to overcommit because the game went pretty quickly, but I wasn't in a commanding lead, but I was in the lead, and I didn't want to overcommit and get punished by a Mirror Force or Torrential because I hadn't seen any of those cards yet. And I hadn't drawn a King Tiger either, so I was kind of waiting for maybe a scapegoat to come along. But at one point, he had a T set, and I had just one monster on field, and I decided not to summon to not try to overcommit, and attacked, and it ended up being a Tsukiyomi. And I'm like, well, if he set Tsukiyomi, and his hand count's pretty low, he must be pretty desperate. So after that, he set one more card on his turn and passed, and set any back row. He set a monster. I top decked Exiled, which was perfect for the situation. Normal summon Exiled, no Torrential Tribute, and I'm like, okay, I'm just good to go. Like I special summoned another monster off of a Call of the Haunted, and used the Exile to pop his set monster, which was a Spy or a Night Assailant, and then the other two directly for game. So that was the Chaos Turbo matchup. Definitely a bit more challenging. And then the third matchup was against Panda Burn. His deck was a little bit weird. Like I said, he was running stuff like Lava Golem and Stealth Bird, things that are like burn cards, obviously, but like not typical with Panda Burn decks. Like Lava Golem just doesn't see a lot of play usually, because if you do summon Lava Golem to your opponent's side of the field, most of the time, like there's the risk of them Mystic walking it, and instead of it, doing burn damage to your opponent, you just gave your opponent 3,000 life points, and you have to make up that 3,000 life points that they just gained from themselves. So Lava Golem usually doesn't see much play in burn decks, but game one, I just absolutely blitzed him. I think I double dust shooted him. I used one on turn one, and then drew another one next turn and used that again. The first one didn't even hit a monster, but I get to get hand knowledge, and the hand knowledge was huge. But he was basically bricked on his opening. He had 2 Solemn Judgments, 2 Giant Trunades, and a Graceful and something else. He used the Graceful, obviously, and then ended up setting a monster because he had literally no monsters out of his 6 cards. But along with the double dust shoots, I had double knocks. So I knocked that, summoned Gearfried I had on the field, attacked with it. He's drew, set another monster, knocked that, had Gearfried, attacked again with it, and like there's just nothing he could do. Like he couldn't stop my aggression. He didn't get any of his floodgate cards like Gravity Bind or Levitt Luminary Bia, and I knew I could just attack directly just off of the trap dust shoots. So I won game one. Game two, he was able to get his floodgates off that I couldn't destroy right away. So his Gravity Bind, Levitt Luminary Bia, it was a very grindy game. I side decked in like 10 cards, so like basically from here to here, and then plus the torrential tribute, and it was a very grindy game. I was able to kind of keep myself in the game, like keep myself healthy with the Mystic Walks. I used both of those. The King Tigers did prevent Ojama Trios at times, but he stole it, and then I had to kill my own Tiger to be able to keep up my aggression. And then after I killed my own Tiger, then he Ojama Trio'd me. It did go very grindy, and he ended up winning it and stalling on the stall war, basically. And then in game three, it was basically just another result of game one, just a very quick aggressive win on the Earth Aggro. So that's what really this deck allows with the Gearfrieds and the Blast with Chains, is that you can just get really hyper aggressive with your attacking. And with these Blast with Chains, you can just destroy almost anything, especially if you got the Gearfried combo, or just equip it to a monster and just have it boosted up to be really strong and beefy and be able to beat over most monsters. I mean, if you think about it, like Blast with Chain on Gigantes beats over Goblin Attack Force even, and it trades with Monarchs, like tribute summon monsters, or beats over Chaos Sorcerers. So the deck just went really well. It performed really well. There was nothing really terrible about it. Like I didn't feel like I needed that third Goblin Attack Force. I didn't feel like I needed the rats. Blast with Chain never felt like a brick. Neither did Dust Tornado. The side deck, there probably could be some adjustments made, but it worked out the way it needed to. Whether the Tribe Infecting Virus and the Torrential Tribute need to be in the main deck or not, that's still to be determined. But these are kind of minor changes. But really, the Gearfried and the Earth Aggro with the Blast with Chain, just it worked out beautifully, really. And even online, it's worked out quite well. I've had really good results every time I've used this deck so far. So it's promising results. Let me know your opinions on improvements, changes, thoughts on should Tribe and Torrential be in the main deck, or how important they are, and side deck choices. I mean, I was even thinking about like Death Wombat would be good against like Burn, and should I have one or not? It's because like it does block burn damage, and it's also a 3-star that can attack underneath those floodgates and help you keep up a little bit of pressure. But that'll be all for this video, and I will see you next time.